I never expected my life, dull and stagnant as a forgotten book on a dusty shelf, to turn into something out of a cosmic odyssey. Yet here I am, penning these recollections with trembling hands, reliving the moments that brought me from the humble confines of the Moonlight Cafe to the very threshold of interstellar travel. My name is Ethan Waverly, a barista who once believed his greatest life dilemma was how to stretch his meager paychecks and perhaps earn a few extra tips. Now, in the aftermath of revelations that could reshape the destinies of two worlds, I find myself a changed man. Allow me to begin at the point where everything became undeniably strange. I have lived my whole life in Trenton Falls, a place of quiet neighborhoods, tidy gardens, and fleeting ambitions. The entire town, it seemed, took pride in its slow and steady pace. The main street was lined with quaint shops, from a small hardware store that had existed since the 1930s to a bakery famous for cream puffs the size of baseballs. In the heart of this subdued municipality stood the Moonlight Cafe, a place with rustic wooden floors, vintage posters on the walls, and a bell that tinkled whenever patrons came or went. I had taken a job there as a barista 2 years earlier, seeking nothing grander than the simplicity of a regular paycheck. The hours were ordinary, my daily tasks unremarkable, and I believed my life would follow much the same pattern until old age found me. But fate, or perhaps something far more arcane, had other plans. The day everything changed began with the usual humdrum opening rituals. I arrived at 6 in the morning, unlocked the front door, and started brewing the first pot of coffee for the morning crowd. By 7, old Mrs. Hathaway had dropped by for a muffin, followed by a stream of bleary-eyed commuters heading toward the freeway. I could almost predict each face that would appear at the counter, each request for extra sugar or skim milk, right down to the last drizzle of caramel. My world was so routine that I scarcely needed to think. Then, shortly before noon, the front bell tinkled. My eyes drifted from the espresso machine and came to rest upon two figures standing in the entryway. At first glance, I thought them ordinary, a pair of young women, about my age, with matching black hair that spilled over their shoulders in glossy waves. But upon closer inspection, something, perhaps their posture or the subtle gleam in their gazes, conveyed an otherworldly aura. They introduced themselves as Nova and Celeste. Twins, they explained, though not in a boastful manner. Their eyes flickered around the cafe with an intensity that suggested curiosity seasoned by wariness. They asked for lattes, specifying unusual proportions of steamed milk and foam, in whispered voices tinged with an accent I couldn't place. Even their clothes were strange, matching gray jumpsuits with faint swirling patterns that seemed to shimmer when they moved. Some of the regulars took notice, particularly the old men who lounged in the corner table, engaged in their daily gossip over black coffee. But the twins smiled politely, placed their order, and retreated to a secluded table near the window. Something about them piqued my interest, though I told myself not to be silly. Visitors from out of town were hardly cause for cosmic speculation. Yet as the afternoon progressed, they remained there, scribbling in a small notebook or occasionally glancing at a sleek device resembling a smartphone, but with a luminescent screen that seemed to project images in midair. Nova caught me staring once and offered a hesitant smile. I responded with a polite nod, though a dozen questions swirled through my mind. When I finally mustered the courage to approach their table, ostensibly to ask if they wanted refills, they jumped slightly, as though I'd interrupted a private conversation. Celeste quickly tucked the device into her coat pocket, and Nova closed her notebook. Their faces were identical in structure but possessed subtle differences. Celeste's eyes were perhaps a shade or two lighter, and Nova's hair, parted in the center, framed her high cheekbones. Their voices were lilting, as if they were struggling to mimic the local dialect. "Is your name Ethan?" Nova asked abruptly. Her accent shaped the vowels in a peculiar manner. I hesitated for an instant. "Yes, actually. I'm the barista here. Need anything?" They exchanged a glance. "We'd love to see the rest of this establishment," Celeste replied, her tone polite, yet brimming with eagerness. "Might there be a basement, or storage area, or hidden rooms?" My eyebrows rose. It wasn't the sort of inquiry one usually heard from out-of-towners. "We do have a small storeroom in the back, and a cellar beneath the cafe," I admitted. "But it's dusty, cramped, nothing special." They exchanged another mysterious look, and Celeste whispered something in a language I didn't recognize. Nova cleared her throat. Forgive our interest. We're researchers. We look for old sites, maybe hidden compartments, anything of historical significance. I should have asked more questions, but I'd never been particularly inquisitive. If they wanted to see the cellar, who was I to deny them? Unless the boss refused, which I doubted. Few visitors ever showed much interest in that dark basement. A sudden swirl of excitement flared in my otherwise dull day-to-day existence. Let me check with my manager, I said, but I doubt he'll mind. We only keep old chairs, coffee filters, and some rusted shelves down there. Any chance we could look today? Nova pressed. I shrugged. We can manage that. And so began my introduction to the realm of the extraordinary. The manager, an easygoing fellow named Martin who valued customers above all else, had no objection when the twins asked to see the basement. Knock yourself out, he remarked with a grin. But don't sue me if a spider spooks you. I led Nova and Celeste down a narrow staircase at the back of the cafe. The single overhead bulb gave off a wan glow, illuminating walls of ancient stone. A musty scent permeated the confined space, mingling with the faint smell of coffee grounds. The twins gazed around with obvious fascination, occasionally pausing to rap on the stones as though listening for hollow cavities. At one point, Celeste placed her hand upon the wall and closed her eyes. I could see the muscles in her arm tense, and a faint tremor coursed through her body. Her expression bordered on rapture, as though she were communicating with something unseen. All right there, I asked, half joking to dispel the sudden feeling of unease. She opened her eyes and managed a smile, though her voice trembled with excitement. Yes, of course. Thank you, Ethan. You're most kind. They spent nearly half an hour examining every crevice. Occasionally, I heard them whisper in hushed tones, exchanging speculations I couldn't follow. I chalked it up to them being eccentric researchers, perhaps archaeologists or paranormal investigators. After all, stranger hobbies existed. When at last we returned upstairs, they thanked me profusely and each purchased another latte. Before leaving, Celeste looked me square in the eye. We shall see you again soon, Ethan. Although there was no direct threat in her tone, a curious chill ran down my spine. It felt almost like an omen. A part of me wanted to ask who they truly were, but social politeness won out, and I simply watched them depart, the bell tinkling overhead. The door swung shut, and for a moment, I was left pondering the slightest shifting of the cosmos, though I dismissed the thought as pure fancy. That night, I dreamed of swirling constellations flickering in an infinite sky, of alien structures half buried in desert sands, and twin silhouettes standing beneath alien suns. When I woke, I remembered only fragments, but the sense of unreality clung to my mind like cobwebs. My morning routine proceeded as usual: shower, quick breakfast, then a walk along the dew-laden sidewalks to the cafe. I nodded at a few neighbors, gave a cursory wave to the mailman, and arrived with 15 minutes to spare. In my pocket, my phone buzzed with inane social media notifications. My life was decidedly ordinary in every sense. But the moment I stepped inside and noticed Nova and Celeste already at a corner table, an excited tremor overtook me. They'd returned, as promised, studying a new device that glowed with lines of text I couldn't decipher. Upon my entrance, both looked up with broad smiles, as if greeting a familiar friend. Good morning, Ethan, Nova said. We hope you're well. I swallowed. Hi. You two are here early. Celeste nodded, brushing a lock of black hair behind her ear. We were restless. This place compels our attention. An inexplicable sense of importance weighed upon my shoulders. These strangers brought with them the promise of something beyond the mundane, the suggestion that life held surprises far greater than any I had yet encountered. Still, as a barista on duty, my first obligation was to serve coffee, so I asked whether they wanted the same lattes. Yes, please, Celeste murmured. Extra foam. I busied myself at the machine, hyper-aware of their presence. Every so often, I snuck a glance in their direction, and they would meet my gaze with a subtle smile, as though to acknowledge the unspoken bond forming between us. The cafe gradually filled with morning patrons, and I had little time for conversation. But the presence of the twins lingered at the edges of my consciousness like a silent riddle, waiting to be solved. Noon crept in. The smell of pastries mingled with the fragrance of spiced chai. The midday lull offered a brief respite from the hustle of orders, and I considered taking my break. As though sensing my free moment, Nova approached the counter. "Ethan, could we speak with you in private?" she asked softly. I hesitated, swallowing back a flicker of apprehension. "Sure. Let Martin know I'm taking my break." Moments later, I found myself in the storeroom, standing amid boxes of coffee beans and spare napkins, with Nova and Celeste poised in front of me. The single bare bulb cast elongated shadows upon the concrete floor, lending a surreal quality to the moment. Nova glanced at Celeste. A silent conversation seemed to pass between them, perhaps a hidden telepathy? Finally, Nova spoke. "We're not from around here, Ethan. Not from Trenton Falls, nor from any region on Earth." Her tone, calm though sincere, caused my heart to skip. I attempted a half-hearted laugh. "You're foreigners, then? From Europe?" Celeste shook her head. "Not in that sense. We're from beyond your sky, from a star system far away. We come in search of something ancient, a relic of sorts, which we believe is located beneath this cafe." My mind reeled, torn between disbelief and the undeniable strangeness that clung to them. Their shimmering device, their peculiar accent, their intense interest in the cellar. Could it be real? Could they truly be aliens, disguised in human form? How? I managed, my voice barely above a whisper. "How is that possible?" Nova drew a slow breath. "We arrived in a vessel that cannot be detected by your conventional means. Our people have watched Earth for centuries, occasionally visiting, though we maintain strict secrecy. Why reveal yourselves now?" "You helped us," Celeste said quietly. "You allowed us into the cellar. We sense you're special. There is an aura around you that resonates with what we seek." I felt a jolt of cold dread entwined with wild excitement. Me? Special? That seemed laughable. A barista who spent his days steaming milk and wiping counters was anything but extraordinary. "You must have me confused with someone else," I murmured. Celeste and Nova exchanged glances once more. Their features, identical in bone structure, but each possessing a unique spirit, radiated compassion. "We need your assistance," Celeste insisted. "And we believe you might need ours in return. There are others searching for this relic, forces more dangerous than you can imagine. If we cannot recover it first, Earth and our own home world could be imperiled." Their words fanned the embers of fear in my chest. "What can I possibly do?" Nova smiled, gentle and hopeful. "Help us gain access to that relic. Show us the passages beneath this building, any sealed doors or old records. Our technology can detect anomalies, but we need your cooperation to navigate the labyrinth of your human authorities. And you may have a deeper connection to the relic than even you realize." It was madness, a far-fetched notion pulled from the pages of science fiction, yet the sincerity in their voices melted my doubts. Moreover, an inexplicable thrill coursed through my veins, a voice within urging me to step beyond the boundaries of my mundane existence. I cleared my throat. "All right, I'll help in whatever way I can. But, please, you have to promise no harm will come to me, to the cafe, to anyone here in town." Celeste placed a hand on my shoulder. A jolt of warmth spread through me as if her touch carried a subtle, otherworldly energy. "We promise," she said. "We only wish to preserve life, not destroy it." With that, they slipped from the storeroom, leaving me grappling with the enormity of what I'd just learned. I stood there for a long moment, surrounded by dusty supplies, feeling as though I'd awakened from an impossible dream only to realize the dream was real. That evening, the Moonlight Cafe was quiet. Only a few stray customers lingered over dessert and conversation, while overhead lights cast golden pools upon the tabletops. My shift ended at 8, and with Martin's nod of approval, I locked up. As I turned to head home, I saw Nova and Celeste waiting under a flickering street lamp outside. They looked ethereal in the moonlight, their hair shimmering like threads of onyx, and their eyes reflecting curiosity and anticipation. Celeste beckoned me closer, speaking in a hushed tone. "We must continue our research tonight, if you can spare the time." I glanced at the deserted street, my heart beating faster than it should. "Isn't it late?" Nova shrugged, a touch of mirth in her voice. "Late for humans, but night suits our needs. Also fewer prying eyes." Though fatigue tugged at me, my curiosity overpowered it. "All right, let's go." Under the moon's pale glow, we returned to the cellar. This time, the twins brought with them a spherical object that glowed with an inner radiance, casting shifting beams of light along the walls. They operated it by tapping various points on its surface, scanning the stone foundations of the building. Motes of energy danced in the air as the sphere emitted faint chiming sounds, akin to musical notes resonating from an unseen dimension. Nova's gaze swept the space. "The relic's energy signature intensifies near this wall," she said, pointing. I peered at the stones, seeing nothing out of the ordinary. "We've never noticed anything unusual here." Celeste stepped closer, pressing a hand against the wall. She muttered something in her alien language, and a ripple of shimmering light spread across the stones like a veil parting. I gasped, scarcely believing my eyes. Beneath the ordinary facade, a hidden archway glimmered briefly, then vanished. Nova and Celeste exchanged triumphant grins. "There's a passage on the other side," Nova explained. "We'll need more advanced methods to open it safely." I stood rooted, my pulse hammering. This building isn't that old. I mean, the cafe's been around for decades, but not centuries. How could there be a secret passage? Celeste looked at me with gentle seriousness. "Time is fluid, Ethan. Hidden artifacts often lie buried beneath layers of human construction, unnoticed for generations. This place is a nexus of energies linked to the relic we seek." As I opened my mouth to respond, a strange vibrating hum echoed through the basement. The spherical device in Nova's hands flickered, its glow intensifying, then abruptly dimming. Both sisters stiffened, turning their heads toward the stairs. "What is it?" I whispered. Nova looked uneasy. "We are not alone." No sooner had she uttered those words than the door at the top of the steps slammed open. Footsteps clattered on the stairs, accompanied by harsh, guttural voices. 3 figures emerged into the dim cellar light. They wore dark hooded garments and carried strange, rod-like devices that pulsed with an eerie, amber glow. Their features were concealed, but I sensed menace in their stance. "Hand over the sphere," demanded one of them, his voice dripping with hostility. Celeste clutched the device protectively. "You have no right to it." Nova stepped forward, hands raised in a defensive posture. A faint crackle of energy danced along her fingertips. My eyes widened. I hadn't realized how potent their powers might be. The intruders exchanged sneering glances, as though mocking the twins' bravado. "You do not belong here, daughters of the Silver Star," another hissed. "Return to your home world, or better yet, surrender." In the tension-laden hush, I felt a sudden surge of panic. I was no fighter, not even remotely. Adrenaline surged through my limbs, paralyzing me. Then, unexpectedly, Nova turned her gaze on me, and in her eyes, I saw not fear but fierce resolve. She gave a brief nod, as though encouraging me to take action. One of the intruders lunged, raising his rod-like device. A searing beam of golden light erupted from its tip. Nova dodged in a graceful arc that seemed almost inhumanly quick. Celeste pivoted, maneuvering the glowing sphere in front of her. A shield-like aura sprang up, deflecting the blast with a crackling spark. The confined space reverberated with the echoes of combat. Boxes were upended, dust swirled, and the overhead bulb swung wildly, casting frantic shadows. The intruders attacked in unison, and the twins retaliated with pulses of shimmering energy that crackled from their hands. I could hardly believe what I was witnessing, an extraterrestrial showdown beneath the Moonlight Cafe in Little Trenton Falls. Despite their courage, Nova and Celeste were outnumbered. The intruders advanced methodically, cornering the twins against the wall near the hidden archway. As blasts of sizzling light whizzed through the air, I crouched behind a toppled crate, my heart pounding so loudly I could scarcely hear. Then my eyes landed on an abandoned metal rod one of the intruders had dropped. Without thinking, perhaps spurred by a desperate urge to aid the twins, I scrambled toward it. My trembling fingers closed around the rod, which vibrated with an alien energy that coursed through my arm. The moment I grasped it, a strange awareness flared in my mind, an onrush of knowledge, as though the device carried an imprint of its wielder's intellect. I dimly comprehended how to discharge the energy contained within. Fear knotted my stomach. Me, an untrained barista, dabbling with advanced alien weaponry? But in that moment of crisis, reason gave way to necessity. Rising from my hiding spot, I aimed the rod at the nearest intruder. A jolt of sizzling power erupted from its tip. The blast caught him square in the chest, throwing him back into the wall with a resounding crash. Sparks danced as he collapsed, unconscious or worse. The twins, emboldened by my intervention, unleashed another coordinated surge of luminous energy. Their combined force knocked the remaining two intruders to the floor. Celeste sprang forward, pressing her palm to the first assailant's forehead, and he slumped as though sedated. Nova performed a similar maneuver with the other. Within seconds, the cellar fell silent but for our ragged breathing. The intruders lay sprawled amid scattered debris, their rods short-circuited. My hand shook as I lowered the alien weapon, adrenaline draining away. Celeste rushed to my side, her eyes radiant with gratitude. "Thank you, Ethan. That was brave." Nova offered a wan smile, though her face bore worry. "They found us more quickly than anticipated. We must work fast to secure the relic." My mind spun with questions. Who were these attackers? Why did they want the relic? Were there more of them lurking around town? But the pressing matter was clear. We had a hidden archway to open, a dangerous relic to secure, and evidently, enemies determined to seize it. Given the chaos in the cellar, we hastily decided it would be wise to leave the unconscious intruders for the moment. Nova and Celeste insisted their sedation would last long enough for us to achieve our immediate goal. Perhaps that was naive, but time pressed heavily. The glowing sphere revealed the faint outline of the hidden arch again. Nova and Celeste each placed a palm on the wall. I saw their eyes glow faintly, silver-white, as if channeling some invisible reservoir of power. The stones shimmered, then parted like two halves of a secret doorway. A surge of stale air washed over us, carrying the scent of age and mystery. Celeste lifted the sphere, illuminating a narrow tunnel hewn from rock. Cobwebs clung to corners, and the floor sloped downward. "Careful," she cautioned, stepping forward. I followed, pulse thudding in my ears, as we ventured deeper into darkness. The tunnel walls were marked by symbols, spirals, and geometric shapes reminiscent of ancient hieroglyphs, yet infused with an otherworldly quality. I recalled learning in some documentary that Earth's early civilizations might have had contact with extraterrestrials. Could that be more than mere speculation? After several yards, the tunnel opened into a small chamber, scarcely larger than an average bedroom. The sphere's light revealed a low altar at its center, carved from the same stone as the walls. Upon the altar rested a jagged crystal of pale blue, about the size of a grapefruit. Its facets sparkled with an inner luminescence, like frozen lightning. Celeste approached reverently, while Nova and I hung back. My heart pounded as though in the presence of something vast and powerful. I sensed the crystal was no mere artifact of idle curiosity. It pulsed with a cosmic significance beyond comprehension. "This is it," Celeste murmured in awe. "The astral shard." Nova nodded, her voice barely above a whisper. "We suspected it was hidden here. Our scans indicated the energies converged upon this point." I couldn't tear my eyes from the crystal. As I drew closer, a peculiar warmth radiated from it, a rhythmic pulse I could feel in my bones. What does it do?" Nova ran her fingertips along one of the crystal's facets. "It is a conduit, a key linking two distant realms. Our ancestors forged it to maintain harmony between worlds." Celeste gently lifted the crystal, cradling it as though it were alive. But in the wrong hands, it could cause catastrophic disruptions. Whole planets might be torn apart by dimensional rifts. A chill swept down my spine. How had such a thing found its way beneath our humble cafe? And what part did I play in this cosmic puzzle? Nova regarded me with an intent gaze. "Ethan, come here. Touch it." My stomach flipped. "Touch it? What?" "The shard seems to resonate with you," she answered simply. "Your aura aligns with its frequency in a way we can't fully explain." Heart thumping, I took a tentative step forward. I remembered how I had somehow wielded the alien rod, how a strange awareness had flooded my mind. Now, the crystal seemed to beckon me, as though an invisible cord drew me closer. I extended a trembling hand. My fingertips made contact with the crystal's cool surface, and an electric jolt coursed through my arm, radiating into my chest. My breath caught. For an instant, I glimpsed visions, swirling galaxies, alien landscapes bathed in twin suns, and luminous cities of spired towers. Threads of memory, both mine and not mine, merged in a kaleidoscopic rush. Then, as swiftly as it had begun, the vision subsided, leaving me shaky and breathless. Nova steadied me, her expression a mix of concern and wonder. "Are you all right?" I drew a ragged breath, nodding despite a swirl of dizziness. "Why, yes, I think so. It's like I saw everything. Planets, stars." Celeste exhaled softly. "Then it has accepted you. This is good. It means we can proceed." "Proceed with what?" I managed, though a part of me sensed the answer was far from simple. Nova's lips curved into a reassuring smile. "We have to return the astral shard to our home world, where it can be safeguarded. But the artifact must be stabilized first. That requires harmonizing its energy with a living host." I blinked. "You're saying it needs to bond with a person?" Celeste nodded. "Yes, temporarily. A caretaker, if you will. Once it's settled, we can transport it safely. Otherwise, the dimensional stress might shatter the shard, creating a rift." A dryness seized my throat. What if something goes wrong? The caretaker can be harmed. Potentially worse. Celeste's gaze held mine, unwavering. "But we believe you have the fortitude to endure it. If you're willing." I'd never been particularly courageous or selfless, but in that moment, the memory of how they risked their lives, and how I'd somehow fought back the intruders, emboldened me. Earth, their planet, maybe countless lives hung in the balance. The sense of cosmic wonder overshadowed my fear. I swallowed. "All right, I'll do it." Celeste and Nova exchanged grateful looks. Then, Celeste placed the shard back on the altar and nodded for me to stand before it. The twins positioned themselves on either side of me, each placing a hand lightly on my shoulders. "Close your eyes," Nova whispered. I complied. Almost at once, I sensed a building energy, a resonance that rose from my core and enveloped my entire being. The crystal flared in brightness, sending waves of blue-white radiance swirling around the chamber. My limbs tingled, my mind swam with vertigo, and a faint humming filled my ears. Images flitted across my closed eyelids, celestial vistas, swirling nebulae, faint outlines of advanced machinery. I sensed the presence of Nova and Celeste as though they stood on the same mental plane, guiding me through the labyrinth of the shard's power. My body felt weightless, my thoughts unraveling into a tapestry of starlight. Then, with a final surge, the energy sank into me, coiling around my heart like a living thread. Gasping, I opened my eyes. The shard no longer glowed with the same intensity. Its radiance had dimmed, yet my chest thrummed with a new warmth. I felt connected to something vast, as though a cosmic current now flowed through my veins. Celeste withdrew her hand, relief etched in her features. "It's done." Nova brushed a bead of sweat from her brow, offering me a supportive smile. "Thank you, Ethan. Now the shard's power rests safely within you, at least for the moment." I let out a shaking breath, a mixture of exhilaration and dread swirling in my chest. "So, I'm carrying the astral shard?" They nodded in unison. "Then what happens next?" Celeste's gaze turned resolute. "We have to ensure you don't fall into our enemies' hands. The intruders who attacked us, they're part of a renegade faction bent on harnessing the shard's energy for conquest." Nova added, "They won't hesitate to come after you. We must leave Earth as soon as possible, deliver you, and the shard's essence, to our home, where it can be properly contained and protected." 1,000 protests sprang to my tongue, but I realized each one paled against the magnitude of the situation. My quiet life, my trivial routines, my petty concerns, none of it mattered now. The cosmic stage had opened, and I'd been cast in a crucial role. I inhaled sharply, scanning the small chamber. "Then let's do it. Let's save everyone." The next few days rattled by in a whirlwind. I hurriedly arranged to take an indefinite leave from the cafe, citing a sudden family emergency. Martin seemed concerned but didn't pry. I mustered a thin smile, ignoring the swirl of guilt and excitement roiling my gut. Meanwhile, Nova and Celeste prepared for departure. They commandeered an abandoned barn on the outskirts of town as a safe location to hide their vessel. Under cover of darkness, I accompanied them there. My heart pounded as they unveiled their ship, a sleek, obsidian craft with faint glowing lines along its hull, shaped like an elongated teardrop. Inside, the craft resembled something out of a visionary's fever dream. Softly glowing panels displayed star maps, swirling images, and strings of alien text. The air held a crisp, purified scent that reminded me of mountain breezes after a rainstorm. Nova showed me to a small chamber where I could rest, explaining that I'd need to conserve my strength for the journey. My last night in Trenton Falls passed in a haze of disbelief. I pinned a note for my neighbor, asking them to feed my cat, Winston, whose calm purring had been one of my few comforts. I also arranged for my bills to be paid automatically, though I hardly knew if I'd ever return. Some part of me wished I could slip back into the normalcy of daily life, but I was in far too deep now. At dawn, we departed. The ship lifted silently into the sky, cloaked by invisibility from Earth's radar. As we soared beyond the clouds, I caught a final glimpse of my hometown. The neat grid of streets, the winding river, the faint lights of early risers stirring to greet the new day. A tightness seized my chest. I was leaving everything familiar behind, perhaps forever. Yet my fear was tempered by awe. Out the window, Earth's curve spread beneath us, oceans and land masses shrouded in the haze of atmosphere. Then, in a breathtaking moment, we pierced the boundary of space, and the stars stretched out in uncountable brilliance. I was part of it now, carrying within me the essence of an artifact older than humanity's recorded history. Celeste guided the craft with calm precision, her slim fingers dancing over controls that responded to her every nuance. Nova navigated star charts, lines of alien text glowing in her eyes. Occasionally, one of them turned to check on me, offering a reassuring nod or smile. Eventually, Nova spoke over her shoulder, voice resonating through the vessel. "We'll enter faster than light transit soon. The jump can be disorienting. Try to remain calm." I took a steadying breath, remembering the swirling vortex of visions I'd experienced when bonding with the shard. Now I felt a subtle, constant pulse beneath my ribcage, as though the shard's energy had merged with my own heartbeat. "We're ready," Celeste announced. The cabin lights dimmed. A gentle hum filled the air. Out the forward window, space seemed to twist, lines of starlight warping into ribbons. Then, with a soundless jolt, we hurtled forward, accelerating beyond the limits of conventional physics. My stomach churned, and flashes of brilliant color streaked through my vision. I clenched the armrests, sweating, certain I might pass out. But as swiftly as it began, the jump ended. My vision cleared, and the hum subsided. Nova exhaled slowly, checking the readouts. "We've arrived in the outer reaches of our system." I peered out the window, marveling at the sight of a distant blue star, its radiance painting the darkness in ethereal hues. Orbiting that star was a cluster of planets, some ringed, some with swirling cloud patterns, each teeming with the promise of unknown wonders. Celeste gestured to a shimmering orb directly ahead. "That's Astridia, our homeworld. Soon we'll land, and from there, we'll transfer the shard's power into its designated repository." Though I could hardly fathom the significance of all this, a wave of relief washed over me. If we succeeded, Earth would be safe from cosmic marauders, and Nova and Celeste's people would reclaim the relic. Maybe then I could return to my sleepy life. Though, deep down, I suspected nothing would ever be the same. Astridia was a planet of violet seas and silver forests, ringed by a luminous band that shimmered in the sky like an aurora. As we descended through layers of lavender-tinted clouds, I stared at the alien horizon, spires rising from hills of green quartz, winding rivers reflecting the sky's pastel hues. My heart soared with the heady realization that I was the first person from Trenton Falls, maybe from the entire Earth, to set foot here. Their landing site was a private facility nestled in a verdant valley flanked by crystalline cliffs. A cluster of sleek, domed buildings gleamed in the daylight, connected by pathways lined with glowing vines. As we touched down, Nova and Celeste busied themselves with post-flight checks. I stood by the exit ramp, hardly daring to breathe. When the doors hissed open, a burst of cool, fragrant air rushed in, carrying scents I couldn't name, sweet and floral, yet tinged with unfamiliar spiciness. Nova and Celeste guided me onto a path of shimmering stones, leading toward a central edifice that resembled an ancient temple fused with modern architecture. Inside, we were greeted by a small group of Astradians, similar in appearance to the twins, with slender builds and obsidian black hair, though some had hair tinted with deep blues and purples. Their garments were decorated with swirling geometric patterns, and I sensed an undercurrent of excitement in their expressions. Celeste stepped forward, addressing them in her native tongue. Her words flowed like music, punctuated by subtle gestures. At one point, she motioned toward me, and the crowd parted with curious gazes. A tall, regal figure approached, an older woman with streaks of silver in her hair, clad in a flowing robe that caught the light with each movement. She extended her hand in a gesture of welcome. "Ethan," Nova said softly, "this is High Sentinel Elira, one of our leaders. She oversees the protection of the astral shard." Elira studied me with deep, assessing eyes. "It is an honor to meet the caretaker." She spoke in accented English, her voice hushed but melodious. "We have awaited this moment for a long time." Warmth spread through my face. I'm honored to be here. I'm just a barista, really. I still don't understand why the shard chose me." Elira offered a patient smile. "Often, the shard aligns with those possessing humility of spirit who do not crave power. That is the safest vessel for such energy." I swallowed, overwhelmed. Together, the group escorted us deeper into the temple, through corridors that blended smooth metal with sculpted stone. The walls were inscribed with symbols reminiscent of those in the hidden chamber beneath the cafe. Soft illumination flowed from recessed crystals in the ceiling, reflecting off the polished floor. At last, we entered a grand hall dominated by a central dais. Hovering above it was a lattice of shimmering threads, forming a globe-like shape. This, Nova explained, was the transference nexus, an apparatus designed to stabilize and contain the shard's energy. Celeste turned to me, voice gentle. "This is where we must complete the bond's transfer. It's harmless, but you may feel a surge of disorientation." I nodded, stepping onto the dais with shaky resolve. The memory of my home, my cat Winston, and the cafe back on Earth flickered in my mind. Despite the strangeness of this place, I felt a wave of gratitude to be part of something meaningful. Nova and Celeste took positions at my side. Elira moved to a nearby console, her hands gliding over glowing symbols. The lattice of energy overhead began to pulse in rhythmic waves. A soft hum permeated the air. The warmth in my chest flared. My heartbeat synchronized with the rising hum, and a subtle glow emanated from beneath my shirt, as if my very skin were luminous. I closed my eyes, surrendering to the current. Then, a swift rush, as though something were drawn out of me. My mind reeled, flooding with images of swirling cosmic grandeur, fleeting glimpses of Earth, and the basement chamber where I'd found the shard. At the same time, I sensed a gentle separation, as though the shard's energy was leaving my body in measured waves, flowing into the nexus overhead. A tingling numbness replaced the warmth in my torso. I gasped, knees buckling, but Nova braced me, her grip steady and reassuring. Celeste murmured words of encouragement in my ear. Slowly, the process eased. The hum receded, and the overhead lattice shimmered brightly, now containing the essence of the astral shard. I sank to the dais, dizzy but relieved, and Nova helped me to my feet. A hush fell. Elira, her face alight with gratitude, spoke something in the Astradian tongue, and the assembled observers bowed in acknowledgement. Then she switched back to English, addressing me. "You have our thanks, Ethan Waverly. The shard is secure, and balance can be maintained." Relief mingled with an odd sense of emptiness, like I'd lost a part of myself, even if it was never truly mine. "I'm glad I could help." Nova and Celeste beamed, pride and affection apparent in their smiles. For an instant, I recalled our first meeting at the Moonlight Cafe, how they had seemed so mysterious and out of place. Now they stood at the center of their people's awe, their mission complete, and I was right there beside them. We spent several days on Astradia while the twins conferred with their leaders about the next steps. I was given accommodations in a crystalline structure overlooking a serene lake, with windows that glistened in the mauve sunlight. Each morning, I woke to an alien dawn of pastel skies and sweet, unfamiliar birdsong. Though the initial crisis had been resolved, there remained the matter of the renegade faction who attacked us in the cafe's basement. If they had followed us here, or if others of their kind remained at large, the shard could still be at risk. Elira and her council devised a plan to fortify Astradia's defenses, but that left Earth vulnerable if the renegades decided to vent their wrath on my home planet. Nova, Celeste, and I discussed the dilemma at length, strolling along lakeside paths lined with translucent flowers that chimed in the breeze. The twins, for all their newfound calm, were obviously anxious. Our people can maintain a presence near Earth's orbit, Celeste explained, running her fingers through the lake's surface. But we cannot station warships openly. It would alarm the planet's governments. Nova nodded, skipping a smooth stone across the water, sending ripples dancing. Besides, Earth is precious. Its development must continue naturally. We'd intervene only in dire need. I bit my lip, recalling those ominous intruders. They won't give up easily, will they? The shard was their goal, but now that it's out of their reach, they might lash out. Celeste exhaled, worry clouding her features. Indeed, they might vent their frustrations on Earth, or set their sights on another cosmic artifact. We must remain vigilant. Despite the lingering threat, the twins and their people treated me like a hero. Elira herself extended an official invitation for me to remain on Astradia as an ambassador of sorts, bridging relations between our worlds. It was a tempting offer. I wouldn't have to return to making cappuccinos and lattes or worry about my rent. Yet my heart yearned for home, for Winston's soft purr and the comforting familiarity of Trenton Falls. Nova and Celeste offered to escort me back, ensuring I arrived safely and unnoticed. I accepted, though I promised to be available should the Astradians ever need my help again. The day before our departure, the Astradian Council convened a small ceremony in my honor. Beneath the glowing arcs of the temple's courtyard, we gathered with a handful of dignitaries. They presented me with a token of gratitude, a pendant fashioned from a fragment of inert crystal shaped into a smooth oval. The crystal, they explained, was once part of the shard's outer casing, carrying a trace residue of its energy. This will allow us to stay in contact, Elira said, placing the pendant around my neck. Think of it as a cosmic phone line, if you will. Should you need us, or should we require your assistance, it will guide us to you. I thanked her, touched by the gesture. The pendant glowed softly against my chest, like a heartbeat from another realm. Nova and Celeste looked on with pride, their identical smiles lighting the courtyard. Our voyage back to Earth was smoother than the initial journey, perhaps because I no longer carried an alien artifact in my chest. As the craft slipped into Earth's atmosphere under the cover of night, I felt a pang of nostalgia for Astradia's breathtaking vistas. But when I saw the twinkling lights of my home planet, a wave of relief washed over me. We landed near the old barn outside Trenton Falls. Nova powered down the ship's cloak, and Celeste scanned the area for signs of intruders. Finding none, they walked me back to the edge of town. The moon hung low in the sky, silvering the rooftops. Will we see you again? I asked softly, trying to keep the tremor from my voice. Nova offered a small, mischievous smile. Count on it, Ethan Waverly. We have bonded through shared trials. We'll return, if only for more of that coffee you brew. Celeste leaned in, her eyes bright with gentle warmth. And next time, perhaps you'll join us on a more peaceful visit to the stars, free from danger. Emotions churned within me. Over the course of mere weeks, we had gone from strangers in a cafe to comrades saving entire worlds from peril. I yearned to prolong that bond, yet also felt the tug of home. Take care, I murmured. Then, awkwardly, I reached out. Both twins laughed softly and embraced me, their arms wrapping around me in a gesture of unspoken gratitude and affection. It was a moment of genuine warmth amid an interstellar whirlwind. With that, they slipped away into the darkness. Moments later, the faint outline of their ship ascended into the stars, vanishing behind the clouds. I watched until the sky was empty, feeling both lonely and strangely complete. Life in Trenton Falls returned to its comforting rhythm. Yet for me, everything had changed. I resumed my shifts at the Moonlight Cafe, smiling at regulars and dutifully refilling orders. But a new perspective colored my every action. I could no longer see the daily routines as meaningless. Rather, they became a cherished normalcy, a gentle backdrop to the cosmic symphony that I now knew existed beyond the sky. At first, I told no one about my experiences. Who would believe me? Sure, I had the pendant that occasionally glowed with an otherworldly pulse. But I doubted the world was ready for such revelations. For the time being, I felt a sense of duty to keep Astradia's secret. Every so often, I'd feel a faint vibration against my chest, the pendant's silent reminder that I was connected to something larger. On restless nights, I found myself gazing at the stars, recalling the swirling galaxies I had glimpsed in the Shard's visions. I wondered whether Nova and Celeste were out there, charting a new course for their people, or standing guard against threats from beyond. Though my memory lingered on the accidental moment they first caught me naked, an embarrassing yet oddly humorous event that seemed to break all social barriers, I realized that single mortifying moment had blossomed into a vast interplanetary alliance. The two had walked into my life under laughably awkward circumstances, and I couldn't help but smile at the irony. Cosmic fate hinged on a chance meeting in the cafe's cramped washroom. One afternoon, a few weeks later, I was wiping down tables after the lunch rush. The cafe's doorbell tinkled. I looked up to greet the new arrival and felt my heart skip. There they stood, wearing casual Earth clothing, jeans and jackets that looked perfectly ordinary, and yet I recognized them instantly. Nova and Celeste had returned. "Hello, Ethan," Nova said softly, that familiar accent warming my name. Celeste lifted a small package that smelled of baked goods. "We brought pastries from your bakery down the street. We hope you'll share them with us." A grin split my face, and I hurried around the counter. I wasn't sure if you'd come back." Celeste rolled her eyes, gently teasing. "We promised, did we not?" Nova's gaze swept the cafe, taking in the comforting clutter of coffee machines and pastry displays. "Besides, we heard rumor of the best coffee in the galaxy here." My chest tightened with gratitude and joy. I ushered them to a table by the window. As they settled, the early afternoon sunlight caught Celeste's hair, making it gleam midnight blue. Nova tapped her foot, humming some soft tune from Astridia, or perhaps an Earth melody she'd picked up. We sipped lattes, the same unusual orders they first requested, chatting about small matters, the weather, local gossip, how Winston was faring, how the cafe's business was booming now that we offered experimental flavors. Beneath the surface, an unspoken bond glowed, woven from shared danger and transcendent discovery. At last, Nova set her cup down, smiling with earnest delight. "Your coffee truly is exquisite." Celeste nodded in agreement. "And we have news, Ethan. We've established a protective watch on Earth. If any renegade forces venture here, we'll know. But so far, all is quiet." Relief cascaded through me. "That's good to hear. I was worried." Celeste patted my hand. "We're also forming a diplomatic corps to open peaceful relations with Earth in the future, once your world is ready. We'd be honored if you helped us when that time comes." I felt the pendant under my shirt, its faint warmth reassuring me. "Absolutely. I'd love to." We fell into companionable silence, savoring the moment. Outside, the street bustled with the mundane life of Trenton Falls. People walked dogs, a postman delivered letters, and a mother pushed a stroller. None suspected that seated at the corner table were visitors from distant stars who had saved the world, and might do so again. Eventually, Celeste cleared her throat. "By the way, we're curious about something." My eyebrows rose. "Yes." Nova folded her arms, feigning seriousness but glancing mischievously at Celeste. "We heard about that new local spa. Something about a sauna and communal showers." A flush crept up my neck. "You're not implying?" Celeste and Nova burst into giggles, reminiscent of two normal young women teasing a friend. I shook my head, blushing despite the swirl of fondness in my chest. Their playful banter reminded me that sometimes the best parts of life are the small, light-hearted moments we share. And thus, in that quiet corner of the Moonlight Cafe, our renewed friendship and cosmic alliance found footing in laughter and steaming cups of coffee. If that isn't a happy ending, one that hints at infinite new beginnings, I don't know what is. I've since come to believe that the universe is far less lonely than we assume. We're all perched on the precipice of countless wonders, separated from revelation by the thinnest of veils. And sometimes, all it takes to pierce that veil is a chance encounter, an earnest heart, and perhaps, yes, being caught in an awkward moment by a pair of alien twins who just might become your greatest allies and closest friends.